Greetings, family. Welcome to another episode of Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. In this episode, we're going to be touching on electoral politics within the neo-colonial context. We need to understand all these machinations of electoral politics. Can it be used or is it linked to our liberation? Should we embrace these methods, these tools, these options as a way to advance our liberation? Let's take a look. This presentation, I will go through it step by step to take a look at this phenomenon. And you will see the reason why in a second. So let's go over, and I'm going to share my screen right quick and see if we can bring it up. And yes, so we should be sharing screen. And yes, so elections, this presentation is entitled Elections versus Liberation. Can elections truly liberate us? So is election the key to our liberation? We shall see. So as we move along, so we're asking the question, can electoral politics liberate us from neo-colonialism? Can the neo-colonial politics in Africa and the Caribbean, can it be used as a tool to liberate us? Let's take a look. Welcome, family. In the wake of the recent election in Jamaica, a question has been heavy on my spirit. What do we, as Black people across the diaspora and the continent, truly expect from these electoral processes? As you can see, in Jamaica, we've had a big recent election between Andrew Holness and Mark Golden representing the PNP and the Andrew Holness representing the JLP. This was a fascinating election. They had very vibrant debates, and it was a standard in terms of electoral politics across the world. The way they structured the debate was quite unique, I must say. The way they had a team debate. This is the first I've seen a team political debate. Like back in school, where you have started the debate challenges. This was the first where you have different MPs representing different sectors of the economy, different sections of the social programs, and then you had the leadership debate between the opposition leader and the actual prime minister of the country. And it was a spirited debate, and a lot of issues came out in this particular debate. Um, Interestingly enough, the JLP won the election. So we are at the aftermath of the election. And it is in the aftermath, in the wake of all of this, that I ask these questions, because I think that as African people, we need to understand what we're dealing with. We need to have a clear idea as to what does all this mean for us. What does we constantly have these elections every 4 years, every 5 years, and we go over these exercises, and does it lead to any genuine liberation or any genuine development for ourselves? So, during election seasons, we campaign, we vote, we celebrate the victories, and we still have to ask the question, do the structures of these neo-colonial states actually allow for our genuine liberation and development? Or are we simply choosing our managers within a plantation of imperialism? These fundamental questions challenges us to examine the very nature of our political engagement and what true liberation means for our people. The critical question, can electoral politics, as they currently exist, advance the liberation and development of African people, or are these electoral politics inherently designed to maintain the existing system of exploitation and inequality? These are some of the questions that we must answer. These electoral politics, do they aim to maintain the existing system of inequality, of imperialism, of white supremacy, of exploitation, neo-colonialism, and on the list go? In essence, the whole status quo of our existence. Maybe, maybe not. We should examine, because these systems could be used to legitimize the continued exploitation of our people. However, let's have a clear definition of a few terms. What is neo-colonialism? What do we mean to hear this word thrown about, neo-colonialism? First, you must understand that neo-colonialism is not direct political rule. These neo-colonial countries are not physically, directly, politically ruled by outside countries, but continued economic, cultural, and political influence by former colonial powers and new imperialist forces continue to shape the destiny of these nations, shape their policies, shape their participation in military activity, in defense activity, and even economic activities and economic alliances. All this is shaped and influenced by former colonial powers and some of the new imperialist forces that has emerged in the last 75 years. The neo-colonial country has a flag and an anthem, but its economic policy are dictated by the IMF, the World Bank, other international financial institutions, or major foreign investors. So its political choices are constrained by foreign pressure. Notably, you hear a lot of people speak about the World Bank, the IMF, because they are some of the biggest lenders. And we can go into a lot of the reasons, the causes, the historical reality why many African and Caribbean and even Latin American countries and other countries around the world had to seek assistance from the World Bank. We can go into it. Could be another clear thinking episode for another time to go into all the nuances of that. This particular presentation is geared towards the electoral politics, these neo-colonial political process that we go through every 4 or 5 years. Does it lead to our liberation? So that's the essential questions, but we can definitely go into the IMF and the World Bank and other financial institutions, the history behind it. Why is it we have found ourselves caught up in these situations? Anyway, let's move right along. Now that we have understanding of neo-colonialism, which we stated are indirect control or indirect rule or influences, economic, political, cultural influences from former colonial powers and also from these new imperialist forces that has emerged in the last, say, 75 years or so. So now let's have an understanding, I should say, of imperialism. Imperialism is the broader system of domination where powerful nations seeks to extend their authority over other nations, often through economic exploitation and political manipulation. This system creates the illusion of sovereignty while maintaining dependency and extraction of wealth from our communities. We must have that understanding. The present day, the current system of imperialism, they manifest themselves around the world to two primary means. One, to the multinational corporations, because some of them are big and mega, have budget larger than many countries in the world, and also through the military, the Western military forces. These are the two main mechanism or instruments of imperialism to maintain their domination of other nations around the world. Now, we spoke about Jamaica as a case study. The Jamaican election we just had recently in 2025, we had election between two parties, the JLP, the PNP. And if you notice something, and me being a student of politics, I've taken a close look at some of the policies of these two parties. And in recent time, I've noticed that the Jamaica Labour Party has moved well, both parties, I must stipulate this. The Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party, the PNP, they operate within the same political framework, the same economic and social framework. Even though they are competing, they're operating under the same political structure. So let's look at that. Both of them, they're in a shared economic framework. Both parties are committed to fiscal responsibilities and austerity to please international lenders. Both are tied to the same neo-colonial structures that we just spoke about. Both parties campaign, and if you notice that, both of them are campaigning on how best to alleviate poverty, how to reduce unemployment, how to address homelessness, how to improve medical care, how to build great infrastructure, how to reduce criminality and crime, how to put out more polices in the streets, how to equip the police and the state and to become more efficiency. All these they are similar campaigns, it's a matter of degree, but it's all about managing this whole neo-colonial order. So there's not very little differences in terms of policy that they're pushing. Now, there was one time there was definitely some great differences in terms of austerity program. The JLP tended to move towards deep austerity in terms of cut of certain programs that was benefiting the population, and the PNP was known for bringing about social programs, housing assistant, schooling assistant. A lot of those programs became very popular back in the days when the PNP ruled, when JLP tend to take over, they tend to cut back under the economic agenda or the political agenda of fiscal responsibility. So that was their thing. To try to get the financial institution to lower their interest rate, to lower their demand on the country. So that was their way of dealing with the economics, big on foreign investment, big on private sector development. So that was it. But in this particular election, it was not a lot of emphasis on those differences. It was more about who can build better roads, who can provide more homes. And you see, the social media campaign was quite effective by the JLP. They highlighted every minute they're cutting a ribbon, and more development is been opening up all across the island. Roads are being built, and school buses are being introduced, and medical centers are being renovated and built, and they publicize it. And in the past, we would not have got an opportunity to see directly what these parties were doing. But now they're using social media very effectively. And as a result, they won the election because they show that they are doing things in the society that are tangible, people can see. But the homelessness still exists, the poverty still exists, the the hunger is still an issue, for some people. The desperation, the deplorable condition of life still exists on that island in Jamaica. And Jamaica is just one example. It is happening all over the Africa and the Caribbean. Similar situation is taking place. And a key point to take away from this is that the election wasn't a choice between liberation and subjugation, but a choice between two different administrators of the same neo-colonial system. So the neo-colonial system remained constant, but it's just about how each parties or each individual is going to manage or administer that system. And this pattern is everywhere. You go to Africa, you go to Ghana, you see the differences between the NPP and NDC. You go to South Africa, you got the ANC and the DA. In Kenya, you got the UDA and you got Jubilee. If you go to in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, you have the PNM, and then you got the UNC, and then in Barbados, you got the BLP and the DLP. So you got, all these different forces working, trying to compete for, the attention and the vote of the population. But the common thread that you have to keep in mind, most of these political parties often become vehicles for elite power rotation and not radical transformation of the system that is exploiting and oppressing our people, that is maintaining impoverishment, maintaining inequality. There is not a serious fundamental change within the constitutional order to eradicate all type of wants in our society. But they become very good administrator of the neo-colonial system. And remember what I said, people. It seems that these political parties, they have become vehicles for elite power rotation. So what you realize that, and to break this down even further, if you go into the Caribbean, there are rich people, wealthy people, elite people, and they back both parties. So you have one set of the economy, set of the oligarchs, them, and the corporate owners, them, and the landowners, them, would back one party, and another would back one party. So whenever any other party win, that particular grouping of elite will be in control. They would have influence, and then it rotates depending on how well they can carry out their campaign, how well they are funded, how effective the campaign was on the streets. But it's just a rotation of who time it is now to run the country. So I just want to make that very clear. So what is the limits of the ballot box in a neo-colonial state? It's limited sovereignty, my people. How can a government pursue Pan-Africanist or even socialist policy when its budget is controlled by debt repayment to the IMF and the World Bank? If you decided that you're going to take steps to not pay these debt, or you're not going to cooperate with the system, then they come to you with the threat of capital flight. You hear this often. You hear these capitalist apologists. You hear these people, these talking heads on the TV all the time when they're talking about economics and the beauty and the wonders of capitalism. The moment you talk about holding the wealthy, the billionaires and the multimillionaires accountable, anytime you talk about holding them accountable for paying their fair share, you hear they threaten the government with capital flight. The millionaires will migrate, or the billionaires will leave and they will go elsewhere. So if you threaten these elite forces that are rotating power, and foreign interests, the money tends to leave the country. That is the threat from these forces, these imperialist forces. They threaten these neo-colonial governments with these type of options and tell them that we are going to flee with our money. Our foreign investment will find elsewhere more fertile ground for deeper exploitation if you don't let us do what we want to do in your country. That is how it works. And this is the kind of limited space and context in which many of these neo-colonial governments have to operate in. And as you know, if you decided to implement a lot of these policies that is recommended to you as a colonial government, as a neo-colonial government, and you decided to cut back on teachers' pay, you want to cut back on nurses' pay, you want to cut back on even the some civil servants who are serving the society, the people tend to get very rebellious. and decided that they want to protest for better wages, better condition, more hospital, more treatment, better treatment. So, and once the people, decided to exercise their right to speak up for themselves, then the repressive state apparatus begin to unleash. The military, the police, the judiciary, they're all part of the neo-colonial structures, and they are often trained by the former colonial powers or their allies, and they are designed to protect the state and the property rights, not necessarily the people. You have to keep that in mind. These police forces that you see operating across Africa and the Caribbean and even in South America, they're not necessarily there to protect the people, but to protect property rights and to protect state power. These institutions serve as enforcers of the neo-colonial order, suppressing genuine movement for liberation and structural change. So if you have any idea that you're going to move towards bringing about any structural change or any fundamental change, and you're not going to play by the rules and the games that they have set, they will be used to suppress, they'll be used as enforcers, and they will be coming to suppress your movement or individuals who would attempt to carry out such objectives in the society. So we just have to be clear. This is the terrains that we operate in as a people. So we must know ourselves when we organize, when we begin to mobilize. Now, sometime a progressive leader would win election and want to make changes in a society. They may even want to make fundamental changes, bring about radical changes, free medical care, free education, better roads in rural areas and access to, all kind of services to the society. And then you realize that the state structure itself, the permanent government itself, is resistant to change, and these leaders get frustrated. But it is important that you know that the electoral process is there for you to exercise to get these progressive leaders into power. But sometimes they meet with a big wall, iron wall that they cannot penetrate. However, so what do we do? Do we just give up? Or can we use electoral politics as a possible way to advance our struggle towards genuine liberation? Take the Sankara example as an example. Thomas Sankara used state power to immediately advance genuine independence, food sovereignty, vaccination, women's liberation, and rejecting of foreign aid and foreign debt. Thomas Sankara refused to play that game. The sobering lesson we must learn from this, that his fate, what happened to him, how they undermined him, how they suppressed him, how they eliminate him, shows the extreme danger the system presents to true revolutionaries like our brother Abraham Traore right now in Burkina Faso. And as you can see, this is a quote from Sankara right here. Debt cannot be repaid. First, because we don't repay. First, because if we don't repay, lenders will not die. That is for sure. But if we repay, we are going to die. Let me read that. Let me say that one more time. Debt cannot be repaid. First, because if we don't repay, lenders will not die. The lenders will be wonderful. They'll be fine. They will do well, even if we don't pay, because they got trillions of dollars. That is for sure. But if we repay those exorbitant debt, we are going to die. So it's a situation we can afford to be playing the games of repaying debt that we should have never been given in the first place, because we are due reparation for the damages that they have done to us. Any type of assistance, we should have demanded full assistance, full accountability for the colonial damages and for the enslavement that they put our people through and the crippling effect that they have had on our people and our countries over the last 500 years. They should be ashamed to come to us offering us loans. They should be coming to take accountability for the damage that they have done and take steps to repair the damage that they have done to our people. That should be the starting point. But when you are weak and disorganized, they can come in and they can impose any type of policies and agreements on you as a country. And they did just that. Now look at Jamaica, for instance, a little small country in the Caribbean. About 3 million people. The estimated national debt of Jamaica is about 14.2 billion US dollars. The International Monetary Fund fiscal monitor, this is April 2025, reports that the general government gross debt as a percentage of GDP to be 64.6% for 2025. That means that the debt is 64% of our GDP. So whatever the country make as a whole, the first 64% is considered to be debt that 64% need to go towards debt repayment. In some countries, it's over 100%. So everything you make, plus you have to put something on top to help to finance your debt. It is a sickening arrangement that these imperialist countries have no shame in maintaining these type of policies, this type of subjugation on small countries around the world. And it's all across the Caribbean is a similar thing. Some of these countries have 96%, what was it? 96, 90%, 103% of the GDP. I mean, it is ridiculous, 81%. And on it goes. And the same thing go across Africa. The debt to GDP ratio. Look at Sudan, 238%. That is stifling. That is staggering. That is just mad, sick that we would even impose these type of policies on countries like Sudan, who have been through hell ever since they've been in existence. Cape Verde, Zambia. I think Zambia should be default on their debt by now. I think Ghana also defaulted on their debt, because you realize you're never going to repay this debt. You're never going to repay it. You spend the rest of your next 50, 100 years trying to repay this debt that these people have put on us, have strangulated our economy, have held our economy hostage to these stifling debt that they put us through. We should reject these debt and tell them, so listen, that's a down payment on the reparation that you owe us as a collective nations of African people. Now, let's get back to electoral politics. Now, some people would say, let's use election as a platform. You got to keep in mind that elections is a platform and not our savior. Education can be, election can be used as a platform for mass mobilization and also mass political education. Election can be a tool for mass political education, a chance to raise consciousness about neo-colonialism, about imperialism, about reparations. So our people can know that we're due reparation, that what the damages and the crippling effect of neo-colonialism on our people and the machination of imperialism with their international financial scheme and also with their military arrangement that they are forcing onto our people, and these alliances that they want us to enter into, whether we like it or not. So it is important that we use the electoral process to educate our people about the true reality of our economy and our political situation. Also, you can use election for electing strategic disruptors. So you can find very articulate, very charismatic leaders who are committed to the liberation of African people, who are willing to work within the system. They can be used they can use election to elect disruptors and agitators who will use the parliamentary platform to expose the system from within, even if they can't overthrow, they can't completely overthrow it yet. I mean, they may cannot overthrow the system as it currently stands, but they're able to work within it to expose some of the fallacies and some of the issues that our people are faced with on a regular basis. So that is something that we have to keep in mind as a people. So election can be used strategically, to get certain people into place that who are going to be disruptors and agitators. But if you're going to go in there to just go along to get along, it doesn't make any sense. But if you can use it as a mechanism to expose certain realities in our society, expose certain systematic issues that need to be addressed, the environmental issues, inequality, exploitation, the lack of proper education, the lack of will to fight for reparation, you can use disruptors to go in there to fight for those issues. We got people that have come on the scene like Mia Motley from Barbados. She has been speaking loudly. She has been a great disruptor. She's been articulating great ideas, great vision about what African people can do, what is the demand, and also the demand for reparation. She's very front and center and clear about that, and we have to give her respect for that. And we also must consider building power outside the electoral process. While we look at the politics every day, we must also look for opportunities outside of the electoral process that can aid us in our unity, in our development as a people. The strengthening of unions. Unions are organized labor movements that fight for workers' rights and economic justice. We should always support the unions, the teachers' union, the nurses' union, the farmers, you know, the factory workers, the governmental workers. It is a great thing to support the unions that are supporting better working conditions and economic justice for the workers there. Also cooperatives that are community-owned economic structures that build on self-reliance. Farmers cooperative, furniture cooperatives, entertainment cooperatives, all type of cooperatives can be created, and many of them are in existence. And we should join cooperatives, support cooperative, and these are structures that's outside of the electoral process that we can support. Also, we must continue to work with the Pan-African network to strengthen the Pan-African, the cross-border solidarity that strengthen our collective bargaining power across region and across the countries and so forth like that. So the Pan-African network is a strong global network because I believe that scientific Pan-Africanism is the best solution for African people globally. Whether you're in Europe, whether you're in America, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in the Afrobean, which we call which is AKA the Caribbean, we call it the Afrobean, are in Africa itself, or in Central and South America. As African heritage people, African descended people, Pan-Africanism is our best solution moving forward. And these type of network outside of the existing neo-colonial political structure can help to build us and move us forward. This can create a base for people's power that can hold elected officials accountable and be ready for deeper transformation. Because when we keep working outside the system, we need to be prepared. We need to have the skills. We need to have the political understanding, the historical understanding, and also the sociological understanding of our society. That means that we are capable of taking control and taking power and using it to effectively transform the lives of our people. That's the key. And we got to think about what is the long game in this whole electoral politics. We must have a long game. changing the constitution, not just the leaders, not just changing president, not just changing prime minister, but also making fundamental changes in the society. True liberation requires changing the fundamental rules of the game, because the rules of the game has been set by colonial powers and also imperialist forces. They have been the one who have set the rules of the game. The rule of the game must be broken up fundamentally, constitutionally. We must put reparation at the front and center of our liberation movement. Using the state to officially and aggressively pursue reparation from colonial powers, that is essential to our liberation struggle. We cannot compromise on the need to hold these colonial powers and these imperialist forces accountable for the damage that they have done to African heritage people and other indigenous people over the last 500 years. So that got to be an essential part of our agenda as we move forward in terms of the long game, because these entities are sitting on trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth, of resources that they have accumulated through ill-gotten gains and through the exploitation, the enslavement, and the colonization of African people. And we will not let them get away with this. We will not let them just let bygone be bygone and think that they have gotten all this wealth and they're going to move on to the sunset and we must sit here and fight over crumbs. We cannot allow that. The long game is to get economic justice for the long suffering of our ancestors and our people today. So we must keep that squarely front and center in our agenda going forward in the long term. Now, economic restructuring. We must be willing to withdraw ourselves from exploitative international so-called free trade agreement. We must be able to break up a lot of these contracts, these extractivist contracts that they have imposed on us. Our government must be able to review all these contracts, all these arrangements that they have made with these imperialist forces, these multinational corporations, and these former colonial empires, and say, listen, those agreement was oppressive. They was imposed under duress. They was imposed because you took advantage of our ancestors, because we were a people that were enslaved, colonized. We was broken. We never had the power to defend ourselves. We never had the economic, political, or the military power to defend ourselves, and you took advantage of our ancestors, and that is an injustice. And these agreements need to be broken up, and new agreement based on justice, based on fairness, need to be put in place. That is what we have to do as a long-term solution to our problems as a people. So you see, people around the world has been marching for reparation. In the UK, they have the annual African Reparation March and rally every year. And you see, over the years, people have come out in their hundreds and sometimes in their thousands and rally in the streets for reparation. So around the world, people have to keep demanding, because that is the long-term goal. We have people like Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, who's also pushing a Pan-Africanist agenda, who's also pushing for great solution of our people. And as we move forward, we're going to have to address, a lot of the other long-term solution, which is the education and the cultural sovereignty, decolonizing our curriculum to foster a new liberated consciousness in the next generation. When we control the education of our youth, we shape the future of our nations, building a foundation for true independence and a Pan-African solidarity and sovereignty. We need to control our own curriculum, and we need to transform our curriculum and Africanize and Africate our youth and let them know who they are as African heritage people. And the conclusion, call to action, my people. Electoral politics in a neo-colonial context are a paradox. They offer a glimpse of power, but are rigged with constraint designed to prevent true revolution. Our task is not just to win elections, but to win power. And power is more than just holding office. It's control over our economy, our resources, our culture, and our future. Got to have control. We got to have power over our lives, our resources, and our future. The ballot box is one tool or method in our toolbox. It is not liberation. We must vote with clear eyes, organize with relentless passion, build with a revolutionary spirit. Our liberation will not come from a single election, but from the daily work of building our own institutions, educating our people, and reclaiming our sovereign mind as African people. Many have fought for our liberation. Many have given their lives. They have devoted their lives to our liberation struggle. We owe it to them. We must honor them. Even our grandparents and our parents, we must honor them for what they have done. They have endured and they have fought for us to be here. We must honor them. We must pay tribute to them when we can. Even today, the fight continues. We got young lions like Abraham Traore of Burkina Faso, the leaders in Mali, the leaders in other parts of Africa are fighting for our liberation. So we cannot give up. We must keep on fighting for our liberation struggle. So use your power, my people. Join the conversation. You know, what are your thoughts? Do you believe in working within the system to change it? Or must we focus entirely on building outside the system? Let's have a respectful and critical conversation in the comments below. Leave your comment. Leave a like, my people. Spread the message. You know what I mean? Share this podcast within your network and subscribe to the channel. It's free to subscribe to this channel, by the way. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next conversation. Take action in your community as well. Connect with other Pan-African organizations to put these ideas into practice. True liberation requires both thoughts and action. You must work. You must organize, as Marcus Garvey said, organize or perish. You must belong to an organization. You must work every day to educate yourself and to improve your community. And I just want to thank you so much for joining Brother Dulani in Clear Thinking. And it's been an honor to serve you, my people, to bring this kind of message to you, to show you that, you know, we are still engage in this struggle to expose the system of inequality and to eliminate it and to eradicate it and to lift all our people up to enjoy this world. It was here for us to enjoy, and we need to continue to fight to eliminate poverty, to eliminate unemployment, to eliminate homelessness, and to lift up our elders and our children. So I want to thank you very much, and please, people, support this broadcast. We need message like this to grow in our community. We need to have a counterbalance that can bring quality information to our people. I want to thank you so much, African people. Thank you much, good people of the world, for listening to this podcast. This has been Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. Walk good, my people. Thank you so much for joining me. Ashe Hotep.